The Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors: EliteForm.com, IgnitionAPG.com, PlayUSA at PLAEUSA.com, and Sorinex Exercise Equipment at Sorinex.com. And now, the Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast. Welcome to Iron Game Chalk Talk with your host, Ron McKeefery.
Every time our athletes walk into this weight room, they're going to be pushed to the max.
Let's go! Everything you got!
On this podcast, hear Coach McKeefery's straight talk about training, featuring the top strength and conditioning professionals from around the world. And now, here's your host, Ron McKeefery.
Hey guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Ron McKeefery, and this is episode number 114. Iron Game Chalk Talk is a weekly podcast where I bring you experts in the field to talk shop. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to us on iTunes or YouTube, or join the mailing list at ronmckeefery.com to stay up to date with the latest guests and anything else that I have going on. Super excited to have Mike Barwis with us this week. Mike has been a friend for many years. We've competed against each other when he was back at West Virginia. Great strength coach, does a fantastic job everywhere he's ever been. He's the owner and founder of Barwis Methods up here in Michigan, and just killing it. I mean, he's a senior consultant for the Mets. He's he's got two nonprofit foundations, one of which is helping people with spinal injuries be able to walk again, and just working with elite level athletes almost across the board in almost every sport. So we get into all that, get into his journey, really talk a little bit about the why you become a strength coach, and how you can help best find the why in your athletes. And so it's a really, really good episode. You'll get a ton out of this, I promise you. Before we do, we want to make sure we recognize all of our sponsors. We have PlayUSA, we have a Sorinex.com, EliteForm, and of course Ignition APG. And again, just talking about the why with your athletes, and so much of that gets back to doing it the right way and really getting and diving into mind, body, and spirit. Ignition APG is all about that. They do so many good things in their community, around the world, around the country, and can't say enough about the people that are there and what they stand for and what they're doing. But Ignition is a sports performance company, and they have products across the line. They're Pro XO protein powder. If you're in a situation where you can give protein powder, their parent company is Prasco Pharmaceuticals, and so they have great products that are clean and certified, and informed choice and informed sport. And so I'd highly recommend you reach out to them and get some samples and try it out, because it's some of the best tasting protein powder that I've had. But they have speed certifications. Obviously, they have their combine prep and things along those lines. But reach out to Cliff Marshall and the gang there. And again, they are more than willing to be helpful in any way they possibly can. So I want to get to this week's episode. Sit back and enjoy Mike's episode, and we'll talk to you on the other side. All right, guys, welcome back. Real excited to have a buddy on, a guy that we've competed against for many, many years, and just a guy that's killed it everywhere he's ever been. And so, Mike, buddy, I appreciate you coming on the show, man.
It's really my honor, buddy. It's being around such a world-class person like yourself. It is a big honor to me, that's for sure. So.
I appreciate that, man. Well, hey, I always feel like you can take so much away from people's journeys, and you have a varied journey. I mean, you didn't just pop up and all of a sudden you were one of the best strength coaches in the country. I mean, you bounced around and paid your dues, and in and out of football and all that kind of stuff. Talk just real quickly, kind of the places you've been and how you got to where you currently own your own business and the whole deal. But really dial in on what was so unique that you felt like you pointed back to, said, you know what, that really kind of defined me as a strength coach.
I've been, I guess the first time I started coaching was 1991. And, in 1993, I started in college. I was working in more of a private sector environment with a lot of Olympic athletes. And then, obviously, college in West Virginia for a large number of years. And I think the thing that really was unique for me and something that really benefited me, I enjoyed coaching football, obviously. I love the game of football. I love being around it. One of the better things that happened to me was being in an environment of working with Olympic sports and a lot of diversity. Because being exposed to the diversity of other sports and the demands, the unique demands, both biomechanically, bioenergetically, neuromuscularly of each individual sport and each individual position really gave me a repertoire or a diversity that I wasn't exposed to in just one sport. And I think that's something for young strength coaches, in my opinion. The more they can be exposed to a lot of different dynamics, the more they can develop and understand the human body and how it functions in athletics. And it ends up helping you in whatever you end up really desiring to do the most, whether it's being a football strength coach or basketball strength coach or, multi-sport strength coach. I think that background of diversity really helped me a ton.
Absolutely. I always say, I tell my staff all the time, I don't know if I've talked about it on the show, but, you one of my favorite Bible verses is that you cast a light into the darkness. You don't cast a light into the light, and so it's easy to coach the guys that want to come in and beat their head against the weights and lift all day. But the sports, when their training age is 0, and all of a sudden you can really teach them what they need to accomplish or how they can reach their goals through what you do. It's a pretty powerful training ground, and I couldn't agree with you more. You went to, from West Virginia to Michigan and tons of success, and then you decided to step away and start your company, Barwis Methods, and so that all stems from, your philosophical kind of approach to training. What are kind of the Barwis methods of training, and what prompted you to kind of decide to go and bring that to the community and throughout the country?
For me, the Barwis Methods consists of a large variety of training. My background's in physiology, exercise physiology, and everything I do is scientifically based. And over the years, I constructed different principles that would meet or elicit the desired changes I wanted physiologically for athletes. And it's very diverse. I'm a very holistic strength coach. I like to utilize a lot of different varieties of training. Obviously I like Olympic lifts. I like conventional lifts, balance and functional training, injury prevention, prehab, plyometrics, impulse training, explosive training, core transfer, unstable and stable apparatus, a lot of functional movements and progressions, functional flexibility, standardized flexibility. So really trying to take a piece of everything that we do all the way down to nutrition, bioenergetic design for my conditioning protocols, and really specifying and designing them for the cellular adaptation we're looking for. So I learned a long time ago, people used to say, well, you train an athlete for a sport, or you train them for a position. And really, you're training the cell to adapt, and then you're trying to motivate a human being. And the reality is, as you know as well as I do, you've coached in many different systems in football. You're running a spread offense. You're going to train an athlete a heck of a lot different than you are when I was working with Don Nealon, who's running a power offense. So it's a different athlete, and it's a different approach. And the reality is knowing exactly what stimulus you need to provide to get the exact desired result for adaptation is the key. And we even get to the point with the Olympic guys we have where we watch hours of film and identify, velocity of shortening, to try and figure out, what is the speed of action we need to ascertain before they get back to play to ensure that this athlete is moving at a higher velocity than he did previously, or an Olympic swimmer or wrestler. So it's a very diversified, very inclusive training protocol. For instance, our pro athletes coming in the morning, we have breakfast laid out for them. I do it down to the calorie. We give them their supplements as soon as they arrive, exactly what we want to prescribe. We design their own supplements, so we use our own line. They go right out, they do the warm-up, which is pretty progressive warm-up and intense. And to the training cycle, they get in cold tubs, they go into their rehab, they got massage therapy, they come back, they have another lunch laid out for them with exactly what they're supposed to take supplements again, and we send them home with dinner and supplements. So everything is kind of laid out throughout the day, and we just try to cover every gamut, and that's something that's a luxury I have, not being in college or pro sports anymore. I can control all those variables, which is nice. It was tougher. It's tougher in college. You got a lot of limitations, but I think for me, I had the opportunity to coach for a long time, and I'd say the thing that really pushed me to starting my own business, one, you you can't stay in college forever.
Right.
You can't stay in pro sports forever, and you have a family to provide for, and you have to develop an opportunity for them. So for me, guys that have done a good job, if they're doing well and they're still coaching, then there's nothing wrong with trying to start a side business to help your family grow. The aspect for me was a little bit different. I left West Virginia. We had a pretty good year. We were one of the top teams in the country. We were number one in the country going into our last game, which that didn't go so well. But we played Pitt, and they had 3 wins. Somehow they got us and knocked us out of the national championship game. And we ended up playing in the Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma, who was number 2 at the time, and they got knocked out of their game. So one played 2 anyway, and we played them in the Fiesta Bowl, and we put a pretty good run. I got to play against my buddy Jerry Schmidt. And world-class strength coach, world-class human being. And
no doubt.
I got fortunate enough that my kids were better. It wasn't the training. He did a better job on the training. So, but the reality was, we went out there and had a really, really good game. But Rich had already accepted the job in Michigan, and he had come to me earlier and said, "Hey, look, I want to go to Michigan. It's an opportunity for me after the Pitt game." And he wanted to know if I would go with him. And I told him, yes, I would. But I wanted to coach in the game, and he said, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and coached in the game, and I left. I landed in Michigan on the 4th, got back on the 2nd, landed in Michigan on the 4th. And one of the things that probably happened to me that I never expected, and I'm a firm believer that God dictates our journey.
Absolutely.
And if we embrace it, then we're on the right page, and when I landed, I went over to the facilities, and there's a boy that came in. We didn't recruit him. He was recruited by Lloyd Carr, and really, really nice kid. Big old lineman out of Wasion, Ohio, Elliot Mueller. And he came in, he said, "Coach, I was watching, ESPN with my brother. I don't know if you know what happened, but we were coming home from church on Christmas Eve and stopped at a stop sign. And we started to proceed through the stop sign, and a 9-year-old man ran the stop sign and hit our car, and he paralyzed my brother. He killed my father, and he killed my girlfriend. And he got out of there okay, and his mom did. And he tore his shoulder out of the socket. So we had to do rehab on his shoulder, but he said, my brother's in the hospital here. And he said, is there any way you could go visit him? So I said, I would love to. Man, I just got here. I didn't know anything about it. I went over and saw the boy, and he was pretty busted up. His arm was tore up, and he was paralyzed. And I talked to him for a while. I really enjoyed the kid. Like, he had a fight. He walked in like he was getting ready to go into the world title heavyweight fight. Just awesome. Mentality. I'm going to win this. I'm going to do this. And they already told him that he had less than a 1% chance of walking ever again. And he kind of just shrugged it. Yeah, right. This is what I'm going to do. And I talked to him, and I said, son, my background's physiology, and I work with people every day in the neural field. That's what we do,
right.
Neuromuscular field. And I said, I can tell you, no one can tell you where you're going to go except for you and God. And that's up to you, and that's up to him. And as long as you're willing to work for it, and he's willing to will it, you'll do whatever you want.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that went over so well with the therapist, but it
usually doesn't.
No. So it was what I believed. And I had faith in Brock, and I had faith in God, so I thought it could happen. So he started rehab while we were coaching, and we were playing our first season, and he used to come over to practice. We'd kind of wheelchair him around, and we rehabbed Elliot back, and he was playing for us at offensive line. And about 2 years in, they told him he'd never walk again, that we were going to cut your insurance off, and we can't pay for it anymore because you're not getting any better. And his mom called me and said, Brock's not doing good. He's a mess. He's upset. He really wants to walk. He feels like, he's got no other option. And so I called him. We ended up talking, and he came over to see me. And I said, son, you want to walk or not? And he said, yeah. I said, well, then, why don't you come in here? I'm willing to take you on. I'll work you out. And he said, Coach, you already got a bunch of teams. You're training pro guys in between, trying to help the alumni you're doing. He said, you're full. You got all these sports. I said, son, look, if God wants me to help, I'm going to help. I don't care if it doesn't. If it costs me my sleep, it costs me my sleep. And I feel like I'm supposed to help you, so I'm going to help you. So I'll be in here with you. And he brought him in. He'd come in right before the team would train every day. And my staff embraced it. Parker Whiteman and Chris Allen, who are now strength coaches at Arizona. Yep. And Rich got lucky. I decided I wasn't going, and he got 2 better ones. So, but the reality is, he came in and worked his butt off, and I had to sit up at night and figure out how am I going to get a kid to take a step that his legs don't work. And it was countless hours of re-engineering kind of ways to use biofeedback loops to get fibers to engage. And after about 6 weeks, we got a twitch. And in 6 months, he was standing.
Wow.
And I went up to Rich and said, hey, Coach, this kid's going to make it. Can we give him a shot? Rich went down to him and told him, look, if you can walk, you can lead us out of the tunnel for the season opener. And it was on national TV in front of 110,000 people. We went out and played UConn, and we were a very good football team, and they were top 10, and we beat the piss out of them. He stepped up and walked across that field and touched that banner. Wow. And on the front it said, glory to God, and then 1% chance on the back. And it was the loudest they said it ever has been in the history of Michigan field. And at that moment, I realized that, got 26 rings, and none of them meant as much to me as that did.
That's awesome.
It was a tough part. I walked to the sideline. I met him halfway, and I didn't want to walk because I figured I'm going to melt anyway. So I met him halfway and helped him to the sideline. I got to the sideline. When the lineman looked at me, he said, Coach, are you crying? You never. And if he could walk, he wouldn't have kicked the dirt in my face. And slapped me on my back and laughed. And, for me, that was an epic moment because I felt like my whole life I was given the opportunity to do what I wanted. And I was successful, and I was able to achieve by God's hand riding on me and giving me those opportunities and presenting me with the right answers at the right time and the ability and the natural motivation and the drive to want to do it. And I realized at that moment that it's probably time I did what I was asked to do.
Absolutely.
And, so we finished the season and we coached, and I told my wife end of that year, I said, I really feel like I love coaching. I love the athletes. I want to help these kids. It's never been about games for me. It's been about people and how I impact their lives and what I do to care for them and because really our job, as much as we're the leader, we serve. We serve God, we serve those boys and those girls. And that's something I always kept in my heart, that, whatever their best interest, that's my best interest. And I tell my guys, look, today, if the people you work with today mean more to you than you do to yourself, you'll be good at this job.
Absolutely.
And that's told my wife, I said, baby, I feel like I'm really probably not doing all I'm supposed to do. And when Rich, got let go at Michigan, I sat down with her and I said, I'm still helping Brock. At that point, he was just walked, and we were trying to progress more and more with the Canes. Our defensive coordinator's daughter was ataxic and had brain surgery during our second season there. And I was watching him on the field trying to help her walk again while I was helping Brock. I looked down and I couldn't take it. And I said, he was crying, and I said, look, I'll take her too. So I took her too, and she ended up walking.
Wow.
And one of our good friends of the program, his buddy had brain surgery and brain cancer and had a stroke. And he was in there, and I took him too. So I had all three of them together, and all three of them ended up walking and coming back, and two of them jogging. And, and it was against all odds. They were both all supposed to be impossible. And at the end of that term, I really sat down with my wife, and I said, I love coaching. I love kids. I love sports. I love the energy. I love everything about it. But I really feel like if I step away from this, I can help more people. And I can help people with disabilities. I can help the youth. I can work with people, to motivate them. I can still coach teams. I can still work with the athletes. I can do whatever I want, but I can do it on my terms without limitations and restrictions. And I can do it to the best of my ability with what God gave me to impact this world before I leave. And that's always been my goal. So that's really what made me do it.
What a fantastic story. And that right there summarizes why strength and conditioning coaches are just a different breed, and why successful strength coaches, it has nothing to do with knowledge, and it has nothing to do with where you're at and those types of things. It all comes down to your willingness to give all of yourself to somebody else. And what an impactful story. And golly, I hope every single person takes away from that and just the impact that you can make on another person's life and in such a big way. So kudos to you, man. I know that about you. I've known that story. But it chokes you up every time, man. But one of the things I want to pull from that is, and this is one of the things that I've always respected the most about you, is it doesn't matter if it's the first round draft pick on the football team, the New York Met pitcher, the Olympic wrestler, or the person that's trying to walk. You've had an uncanny ability to get people to buy into you as a leader, as a motivator, as a coach, in a quick and unique way. And sometimes, again, I think that's God's gifts for sure. But it's also, it doesn't come without really refining that as well, and really putting a lot of effort into making sure that you're creating a culture with your business, with your coaching, with your staff, with the athletes you work with to foster that. And so what takeaways, what tips did you have for other strength coaches to because it's a relationship business. How do you best develop those types of relationships to where people are willing to freaking walk when people tell you, everybody's telling you no?
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think earnestly that for me over the years, every guy, if you want a guy to really follow you into the worst circumstances, he's got to know that you're willing to go there for him. And for me, taking myself out of every day is what allows me to be successful. Saying that when I walk in there, because there's days where you're like, man, I gotta do something for me. Because I try to shut those off because I realized a long time ago that all I am is all God lets me be anyway. So the reality is, for me, it's all His. My body, my mind, my soul, everything I do, He owns.
Absolutely.
I'm just using it, and that's for me. I feel like when I show up, I'm going to use it the way He wants me to, because He can take it away anytime He wants.
No doubt.
So when I walk into that room, I try to separate me from the game, and I try to say, okay, today it's about whoever it is, Richard Sherman or whoever it might be. It's about whatever that athlete is that's in front of me, and how do I manifest greatness in them? And the way you do that, in my opinion, one, you got to know them. We spend a lot of time coaching, and I think a lot of intensity, but do we really know what they deal with in their life? Think about your own life and think about the things that influence and govern your actions. Your wife, your children, your parents, their family, relationships, things that are really, really important to you. Most of your decisions you're going to make by thinking about those things.
Yep.
There's no difference in a kid you're training or an adult you're training. The reality is you've got to know what's important to them, what matters to them, and that has to be first to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't love a man and hate his children, I promise you. Because if you hate his children, the man hates you.
No question.
It doesn't make it different what you do. And it's the same thing in athletes. It's being able to say, what? I want to know about your life. Where are you from? Where's your family? You got any brothers and sisters? Yeah. You got any children? Yeah, I got two. Okay, good. How old are they? And then really talk to them. Understand, it's important for you to care about those people. When you care about those people, you'll find what makes them tick, and you'll be able to take them to a place that no one else can take them.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, they're going to grow you. Because I think a lot of people look at it as like, well, this is my scheme to get to know them so I can coach better. It's your fortune to get to know them.
Agreed. What a great.
Because God lays them on your life to make you a better man. And if you embrace those people and you learn who they are, they will feel something in your heart that He didn't put in you. It's going to make you a better man, make you a better coach. And when you have that feeling, when you walk into a weight room every day or onto a field every day, and every one of those people are your family, and you're willing to sacrifice all you are for all they will be, you're going to be okay.
No question.
And they will know that. You can't fake that.
No question.
When they feel that, they're going to love you, and they're going to go to the wall for you, and you're going to love them, and you're going to go to the wall for them. And I'm a firm believer in, you can be demanding as a coach, but you need to earn your respect just like they do.
No question.
And unless you're a guy that is willing to say, hey, I've had kids, hey, coach, I'm having troubles at my house, and I show up at night and tutor them. People are like, you kidding me? You just coached all day. You know what, man? The kid needs help.
Yep.
His dad's not around. He's got no dad. He needs some guidance. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to help him. And I had a wife who was a strength coach, thank God, because she was willing to say, go ahead, just go. And it's been a blessing. I mean, but that's really always been my philosophy. And I'm really, to be honest with you, I'm very humbled to even be on the show, because the reality is I don't do much special outside of what God lets me. And I'm just blessed to be in good places with good people every day.
No, that's awesome.
Love it.
Well, that's we say on the show, all the time, and I got it from one of my preacher at South Florida. But you spell love Time. What you love, you'll spend time with. And that's what it takes. I mean, you got your 2 hours with them. They got 22 hours to mess up everything you just did. If you're not involved with those other 22 hours, then you're fighting a losing battle. And I, you're competitive. I'm competitive. I don't like to fight a losing battle. And so. That's you've got to be involved, and I couldn't agree with you more. And the other part, I think the other takeaway from that was, there's a great quote I heard the other day. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it said something to the effect of, make sure you pause from your pursuit of happiness to be happy, and really live in the moment. And there's too many coaches that are listening to the show that they're so caught up in the grass is greener, and they want the next big job, and they want the Michigans, or they want the whatever. And the reality is you don't get to those places unless you're happy being where you're at, and make the big time where you're at. And we talk about that a lot, but I couldn't agree with you more. Another thing you mentioned earlier was, creating other revenue streams and branding and there's a douchebag way to kind of do that. And then there's the right way, and you do it the right way. I mean, but what's funny is I just got done writing a book, and I actually have a passage in there about you specifically. And it's like, when you went from West Virginia, and we played each other every year at South Florida, when you went from West Virginia to Michigan, and I think at the time you were the highest paid strength coach, if I'm not mistaken, there was a lot of people that freaking hated on you for that. There's a lot of people that were like, what are you talking about? He's not him. Who's that? He's worth how much? And there's a lot of people that kind of say, to start casting stones and all that kind of stuff, instead of what I thought, and this is what I said in my book, is that we should have been, as a collective unit, celebrating the fact that we got somebody that's making what we're all worth, if not, and we're never going to get paid what we're worth for sure, but everybody's quick to throw stones instead of quick to celebrate and champion and be excited for somebody else's fortune or somebody else setting a trailblazing a path or something along those lines. I think, I get a lot of heat, from even on the show sometimes, where it's like, oh, you must be doing that to try to make money or this, that, or the other. And I mean, there's a little bit of money to be made for sure. And there's nothing wrong with that. But people think I make $1 million. I pay my cable bill, I pay, I take my kids to ice cream or something. I don't know, but you've done a great job of branding you, not just in the strength and conditioning community, but now, I mean, earlier today, you're talking to the freaking owner of the Miami Dolphins. I mean, you're talking you've been able to develop relationships and create a brand around, working with people with disabilities and things along those lines. What's the non-douchebag way to do it? What's the way to, how do you do it, and so that people know your heart? Because I know you and I know your heart, and you've done it the right way.
I think for me, I think there's a number of things. As you touched on earlier, one of the biggest problems we have, I think, in our field is we're so competitive. We're all competitive, tough guys that work real hard. Mm-hmm. And the reality is we get so competitive that we end up desiring ill will for someone else and only goodwill for us. And I don't think that helps us as men. I know it doesn't help us as strength coaches. And in the reality, my grandma told me when I was little, she said, son, people live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. And she said, just as soon as you achieve perfection, then you can criticize somebody else.
Which will never happen.
And I looked at her and she said, it ain't never going to happen. So get used to it. So that was the thing. And I think, when you look at life, I think we got to understand that. And that's something we got to do better in our field, because, I've done well financially. And more importantly, to be honest with you, I've developed a lot of relationships, and I've tried to touch as many hearts as I could while I was going along the way. And I think, honestly, the thing that separates us from other fields that limits us is that attitude. Is that attitude that, well, this guy doesn't deserve that, or he doesn't deserve this. What you should be thinking is, God, he just got $400,000. Man, I might go up to 450.
Right.
That's great. You know what?
No
I
question.
hope every one of you make more money than I do.
No doubt.
That's awesome.
No
I
doubt.
really do. I bless you, God. Please, I hope you all achieve that, because y'all have families, y'all have wives, most of you have children. And the reality is, they have futures too. And what you do while you're here, one of your callings from God is to bless that family. And it's probably the most important one you have. So the reality is, if you have the opportunity to benefit your children and your wife in some way, and you ignore that, you're probably not doing your job.
Yeah.
And for me, I honestly think there are a lot of talented men out there like yourself and women who deserve opportunity to succeed, and they just have to say, I'm willing to embrace it. And you know what? Look, when you're doing well, you will always be criticized. That's okay. It's okay. Because you have to understand, even the people who have malice towards you, you got to forgive them too.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter. You just nod your head and move along the way. I think keeping substance in who you are is the key to making sure it's the non-douchebag way.
Right.
The reality is getting to a point of saying, this is the man or woman I am. And this is my grandfather told me when I was little, I'm like the king of one-liners, because my grandparents were really good, simple people that just told me simple things, He told me, son, remember this. A man makes a position. A position should never make a man. And I've taken that with me my whole life, and that's really how I started the business.
Right.
What kind of man am I? What kind of man do my children want to look up to? What kind of man does my wife want to hold? And what kind of man will God be proud of?
No doubt.
Those things right there, if I do all those things, then I'm going to be okay in what I do. And I honestly think, we have two nonprofit organizations. One's for impoverished children. It's called Athletic Angels. We've been doing that for 11 years. We take care of orphanages. We take care of all kinds of people who have fatherless homes, no parents at all, have been wards of the state, and we help them. We do a number of things. We take them to Christmas parties. We have them train in our center for free. We do all kinds of stuff. And we have another one that's called First Step Foundation. That's for neurological patients. In the last 3 years, we've had 53 people that they told would never walk again walk.
Wow.
And we have a foundation that tries to take care of those people. So everything I do, I try to make sure it's given back. And anytime you give back, God gives to you.
No doubt.
And people don't always like to hear that, but I'm telling you, that's been my whole life.
I couldn't agree more.
The things that have made me successful are the ability to give everything I have to other people, down to my last drop of blood for the day. And then when I get up in the morning, for some reason, God lays a blessing on the back of my head.
Yep.
And I'm appreciative of that.
No question. I think that, and two things there. One being, it doesn't matter what you trace it all the way back, whether or not you were, me, I was making, my first year at South Florida, I made $9,000, or when I made, significantly more than that at Tennessee. I did the same job the same way the whole time, and I know you did the same. It didn't matter where you were at. It didn't change who you were. And I couldn't agree with you more there. And then the other part of that is just, the fact that when you give back, like you said, like you're saying, and people challenge you on that, you know what your heart is, and so at the end of the day, I could tell people to take a hike. I know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And so does God. So absolutely. But, well, man, we could go all night, and it's late at night. I want to get you back to your family, but we always end the show with some resources here. So, give me the best piece of coaching advice you ever received. And you gave us already some tons from your grandparents, but maybe coach to coach.
Probably the best piece of coaching advice I ever received, I would say, is what I talked about a little bit earlier. Really finding what truly motivates a human being is only found in what their heart is attached to. Read through the Bible and you'll find the word love in there quite often. And the things you love are the things that are closest to you. And if you embrace those things in another human being, they will fight for you.
No question.
And you can fight for them. But you can't be the guy. It's everybody thinks where you're at, I'm out there just coddling them, kissing them, and hugging them. And sure, you know what? When the pros leave, I've got guys that are 35 years old that are 6'6", 360 pounds. I got James Carpenter today, played for the Seattle Seahawks, two Super Bowls, one ring, and now he's with the Jets. And he leaves, he gives me a big hug and tells me he loves me. I tell him I love him, and he goes on his way. That's a big human being. He ain't soft.
Right.
I promise you I'm not soft. But at the same time, you have to be able to embrace humanity.
No doubt.
And I can be as hard as I want to be on that man when we're working. And he won't budge a drop. He won't bitch. He won't whine because he knows the fight is his. It's not mine.
Right.
And he knows that's why I'm there. And if that's what you find in who you are, it makes you unstoppable with people because your relevance isn't there. Theirs is. And that's what the ability to serve, we oftentimes look as a submissive role. It's a role that God asks us to perform. And serving our fellow man is an admirable role. It is what a general in the Army does. Mm-hmm. It is what a leader who's a great leader is supposed to do.
Great.
Just beating somebody down and trying to separate yourself from them, that doesn't help anybody. But you can put a hurting on a man and work him hard as long as you're willing to give everything you have for him.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more. And another thing, to touch on one part of that, I couldn't agree more with the fact that, you've got to let your athletes see that you're human as well. And so, I talk about struggles with my, with my marriage, with my kids, with life, because you know what, that's part of our job is helping them prepare for life. And if they have never, most of them haven't had examples, unfortunately. And so if if me helping them through my struggles, helps, them down 10 years down the line, I've done my job for sure. But couldn't agree more with that. Give us when you're interviewing for your staff and like we talked about culture being so important, give me a question that you ask to really kind of get to the core of somebody or to really decide whether or not you want to hire them or not.
One of the things I always ask is 5 years, who do you want to be? Mm-hmm. And I get it's the one that I don't like. The only answer I don't like is you. When they look at you and they say you, and to me it tells me that you really either A, you're not honest, or B, you really don't think very highly of yourself. The reality is, I can show you everything I do.
Right.
I can teach you everything I am. You've got something in you that's totally different from me that God put there. So if you learn everything I am and everything I do, you should be better than me. Mm. And your goal and aspiration should be to make me look like I have no idea what I'm doing. And if you do, then you know what, I'm proud of you. And I'm going to be your first man cheering.
Yep.
And I'll be up front cheering you on and saying, go get them. And I honestly think that you can really learn a lot when you ask that question. Because you're either going to get the, I want to be like you, or I want to be, or you're going to get the, I just want to try to make it. Everybody has a real dream. And I usually follow it up with, all right, now give me the honest answer.
Right.
Who you want to be?
Well,
Tell me who you really want to be. You want to be average? Because you can't do common things and expect uncommon results. You want to be like every other man? You willing to walk the same road I walk? You just want to be like me? That doesn't make any sense. Show me what makes you special. Tell me why you showed up here, why you want to be in this room, and what you want to achieve. Because if you didn't believe you could be something special, you wouldn't be here. I want to know the answer. I want to know what makes you tick.
That's
I want to see how far you're willing to go. And then my next question is, what are you willing to pay to have it?
Yep.
Because people ask me all the time,
sacrifice.
You've done great. And the truth is, what will you do that someone else won't do that's honest and just to make it happen? And if you know that, you're going to be great.
Oh, that's some great takeaways right there for sure. Obviously, you're well read. You can obviously you're spitting off stuff top of your head. I mean, you don't get that way without really constantly researching your craft. give me a book, app, website recommendation.
A book or apps, a website recommendation. I'll tell you one that I actually really like, and I've read obviously a lot of books, but if you get into some of the Russian periodization stuff, original books, there's some really neat stuff. Some of it's outdated, no question, and some of it's maybe not as progressive, but some of the stuff that I found, like some of Tudor Bob stuff's really good. Is Serious Sports Training is a good one because it gives you a little bit of different advice on different styles of training in different phases, from power phases to strength phases to hypertrophy phases. And it gives you a basic guide. The other thing that I really like that I think a lot of times we don't do in our field is go back and grab an exercise physiology book and read it, or go back and get a neurophys book, because neurophys was big for me. It's something I studied, and I'll be honest, neurophys is really how I designed a lot of programs. We were there with Brandon Graham today, and he plays for Philadelphia Eagles defensive end, and I have Molt for the center. And Brandon Graham looks at me and he goes, "I'm the strongest player on the defense, Molt's the strongest player on the offense." And he goes, "It's these Barwis methods." I said, "You think so, or you think it's the two men that lifted the weights?" Mm-hmm. And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, "That's a good point, Coach." and he kind of chuckled, but neurophys can really, really, really help you. Right. Because understanding that if I slow emotion down, I connect more cross bridges between actin and myosin. If I pause emotion, I engage more even so, because muscle force can't take place instantaneously. It has to develop. Mm-hmm. So understanding that principle is essential. Looking at actions and force and velocity curve. As force goes up, velocity goes down. What does that mean in a neural principle? Everything you do in strength and conditioning can be tweaked or changed just a little bit to get a completely different outcome by understanding how the neural system fires. And those little tricks of, when I lecture a lot of times, I wrote the master's curriculum at West Virginia and taught as well while I was coaching there. And when I lecture a lot of times, it's about implementation of neural phys into what we do. Right. And really making us great by using those tactics. Absolutely.
Well, not only that, but it incorporates a lot of variety into your program.
No question.
No question.
And the current exercises you have.
Well, this has been fun, man. I truly appreciate you taking the time, and obviously, I hope that everybody takes from this, if they're not familiar with you, what the type of person you are, and that's what first thing that I always say when people ask me about Mike Barwis is how big your heart is, man. And so I truly appreciate the time. I appreciate you giving back to the community, and I just love the way you go about your business, man. So thanks so much.
Thanks, man. It's really my honor, and I hope God really blesses you and your family, because there's not a better man out there.
Appreciate that, man.
That's it for this episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk. Thanks to this week's guest as well as our sponsors for bringing this episode to you for free. Make sure to check out ronmckeefery.com, where you can join our mailing list, find the show notes, including all the links and resources mentioned, and information about Coach McKeefery's other products. While you are there, please join Coach McKeefery in the comments section thanking our guest for sharing. If you haven't subscribed to Iron Game Chalk Talk on YouTube or iTunes yet, make sure to do so. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome. Coach McKeefery can be found on Twitter at @RMcKeefery, on Facebook and YouTube at /Ron.McKeefery. That's it for this week. Be sure to check back next week for another great episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk.